2 years of invasion, of occupation, of war crimes faced by the Ukrainian people as a result of Putin's horrendous, criminal, imperialist invasion. It's been described as a meat grinder. It's been compared to World War I in terms of the level of casualties, the type of war that is being fought. More than 10,000 civilians have been killed. Potentially that's a significant underestimation as a result of some of the atrocities unable to be properly investigated. Absolute horror for the people of Ukraine, and they have every right to resist this invasion. We stand in solidarity with them. It should be noted that, combined with the imperialist aggression of Russia outside its borders, is an internal crackdown on dissent, an internal crackdown on anti-war activists, an internal crackdown on anyone who would challenge the rule of Putin. That appears to have resulted in the death, whether assassination or killing through imprisonment and isolation, of Navalny. But it's also seen in the barring of Boris Nadezhdin, an anti-war challenger to Putin, from standing in the forthcoming presidential election. It's seen in the jailing of socialist and anti-war campaigner Boris Kagarlitsky, who was jailed for over 5 years. So repression at home combined with imperialist aggression abroad. The Irish state needs to increase its support for the people of Ukraine. That is not about increasing militarisation. We oppose that. That is not about sending weapons. It is not about getting involved in NATO operations. But it should be about increasing humanitarian aid. It should be about calling for the cancellation of Ukrainian debt. It should be about shutting down the shadow banking system within the IFSC, which is used by Russian oligarchs and other oligarchs to fund both the Russian regimes and various other wrongdoing around the world. It should also not involve a cutting of the support to Ukrainian refugees, which the government scandalously is planning to do, having originally treated them as all asylum seekers should be appropriately treated. It's important to say, when speaking as part of the Western world, that what is happening is not simply a war of horrific imperialist aggression by Russia and a war of legitimate national liberation by Ukrainians. But as well as that, layered on top of that, is effectively a conflict between major big powers, an inter-imperialist conflict between Russia and its allies on the one hand and the US and its allies on the other hand. Evidence of that is clear in the $50 billion of military aid which has been poured in to Ukraine by the US. If anyone who 2 years ago may have believed that, well, the US, NATO, the EU is doing this because they support self-determination, they support democracy, they support human rights, well then their illusions will have been dismissed by the reality of seeing the very different way they have acted in terms of Palestine, where they support Israel. The reason they are doing this is not out of concern to the Ukrainian people, because they have their own conflict with Russia, they have their own plans in terms of expansion of NATO, and in that conflict ordinary people can have neither side. Both sides are enemies of ordinary people, both NATO and Putin. And therefore we have to oppose what is happening in terms of the race to militarise Europe, the race to undermine neutrality, using Putin's horrendous invasion of Ukraine as a reason to do so. In 2022 alone, 1 year, the increased projected plans for military spending within the European Union was €200 billion, more than the total spend in 1 year in 2020. You have a drive to integrate the European military project within NATO, the applications from Finland and Sweden to join NATO, Ireland and others' participation in the UK Contact Defence Group, described as a NATO alliance by the US Secretary of Defence. You have the drives towards a European army, talk now of a Defence Commissioner, the strategic compass, effectively establishing an EU army able to be deployed of 5,000 soldiers at this stage, and effectively an EU command and control centre in terms of the military. And here, this war, this invasion, has been used to accelerate the assault on neutrality in terms of the Ukraine Contact Defence Group, in terms of sending military aid to Ukraine, in terms of sending military training. We have to oppose those things, absolutely. We have to oppose, we need not to be investing in war, we need to be investing in climate action, and we need to be fighting against imperialist aggression, for the right of self-determination and for peace.
Thank you, Deputy.